Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Chelsea Sanders from Refinery 29 Unbothered, and welcome to this 92nd Street Y conversation. I am so excited to introduce this conversation for so many reasons. Today's panel is the CW's New Batwoman and Other Game Changers with Batwoman herself, actress Javicia Leslie. Javicia is making history as television's first Black Batwoman in the CW's new season of the DC superhero series. She joins us with some amazing, groundbreaking Black women in entertainment and beyond. Actress Ashley Blaine Featherson, freelance beauty editor and creative consultant Janell Hickman-Kirby, and Spike Spin founder and Black wellness advocate Briana Owens. And not only are these ladies friends from the entertainment world, they go all the way back to their HBCU days. So, we're going to hear some stories. And today we're going to talk about that journey, right? From HBCU to Hollywood and beyond, about Javicia's casting as Batwoman and what it says about the entertainment and these industries in 2021. We're also going to be talking about that sense of community and that sense of sisterhood among these amazing women, how they empower and uplift each other, and the hard work that still needs to be done in opening doors for us and new voices. Before we kick off the conversation, let's take a look at a clip of Javicia in action.
You're not Bruce Wayne.
Okay, yes, here we go. That's the energy that we want to start off with. All right, so in thinking about this, I already feel amazing. We feel like our superhero selves. Let's get into it, ladies. For those listening in, as I said, all of you have a relationship here that goes back further beyond, to their college days when there were things that you could say, you couldn't say, and that you maybe need to erase from the internet. So we're going to take it all the way back there. And can you, ladies, tell us, Javicia, I'll start with you. You went to Hampton, and you went to Hampton with two of the ladies here. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first met?
Yeah, I think Janelle, we met through the twins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we met through mutual friends. And then when I was in Maryland, I used to work at a hair salon. And so when I got to Hampton, one of my forms of income was doing people's hair. And Janelle used to come to my dorm room and I used to do her hair. I would go to her dorm room and I'd straighten out her hair. And then Bree, I met, I believe Bree, you're 2 years under me, right? Younger than me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when she
Yes.
came in at the time, I was a student leader, which is a program at Hampton that we have to help bring in the new classes and get them acclimated and just really show them what Hampton's all about. And so I was a student leader when she came in, and we just kind of attached ourselves to each other. We had mutual friends already. And both of these relationships we've maintained through the years. And then Ashley, I kind of do know her through Hampton per se, because one of my good friends, Trevon, it's funny because we talked about Trevon in the last interview I did with you, Chelsea, but he had a gathering at his house, and Ashley walked in. I'm like, oh my gosh, who is this beautiful sister? She was going to Howard at the time, and we maintained a friendship, but actually have built a friendship since, with both of us living in LA and having mutual friends as well.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And Ashley, I want to kick it to you for a second because, there's that HU debate, Hampton versus Howard.
I was hoping we were going to.
I had to. I'm sorry. I had to.
But here's the thing.
Here's
the thing. There's only one real HU, but I have a huge affinity for Hampton because my family's from Hampton. So my mom's from Hampton Roads, my whole family's there. So Hampton holds a special place in my heart. And also when you get older, the whole rivalry thing, it's I just want all Black schools to succeed. Hampton is an amazing school. Howard is an amazing school. We all support one another, but it's fun to kind of talk crap about it, but we all love each other. It's fine.
Yes, I mean, and I think that's the best part of this. Now we're all here, right? And you're all here. And I mean, as much as wherever here in 2021 can be. I think that's so awesome
Yeah.
to hear that you guys, that relationship started so early and that you guys have found that community and that communion and stayed close now as you have, become professional, amazing women. And Javicia, I know, again, it's been a crazy year, but in the midst of everything and in having these conversations and in understanding where we are now, let's talk about it. How did it feel to get the part of CW's Batwoman?
It was, I remember when I found out, I had to go through a lot of testing before they
Mm-hmm.
chose. And the amount, it was about 3 days between my last testing and the day that I found out. It was the most stressful 3 days ever. Like, I meditated so much just to help calm nerves. I kept saging just to help get rid of any like doubts that I may have had, or excuse me, doubting thoughts that I may have had. And matter of fact, I was praying when I got the phone call from my manager and she asked, could she speak to Ryan Wilder? And it's funny because, in our industry, we're more used to hearing the word no than we are the word yes. To the point that when I saw her name appear on my phone, I knew it was her way of telling, they passed. So that's what I was expecting to hear, and to hear yes, it definitely, it took me for a loop. Like, it took me a second to react. Then when I finally reacted, of course, I started crying. Um, and that was a really cool part of the journey. But then, literally a few hours later, I open up my phone and I'm reading the trades, and that's when it dawned on me, because the first thing I saw was Javicia Leslie, the first Black woman, the first Black actress to play Batwoman. And when I was auditioning for it, that never really, it went through my head in a negative way. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna cast a Black woman.
Mm.
Um, so when it happened and I saw that in the articles, I realized it had nothing to do with me. I realized that this was just way bigger. And at the time, with so much going on with my people, um, I felt like it was something that we needed. I think it was a boost that we all needed to feel. And the thing about acting, and the thing about, it's your imagination. When you're watching TV, your imagination gets to go off and have fun with these characters that are created. And I grew up watching Batman, and I know how I would get lost in that world. And just to be able to bring some of that entertainment and some of that joy through our lens, it's really important, and I'm really honored to be a part of that.
I love this because one of the things that you just mentioned was this idea that it wasn't about you, right? That this moment wasn't about only you, wasn't about you as an actress, but you as a Black woman. And Janelle, I'd love to just start with you. Can you tell me just, this win for Javicia, did it feel like a win for all of us, for you, for Hampton, for Black women?
Absolutely, because I think the one thing I love the most about Javicia is this has been a long journey. I think there's so much overnight success that we see. So it's like to see someone who, like, I know how many auditions she did, and I know how powerfully she spoke about wanting to be an actress. So to see this moment finally come for her in such a pivotal moment for Black Americans was special. And I think for kids, kind of what she mentioned, that imagination, we've never seen ourselves prior to Black Panther in these spaces, right? So we always had to imagine, like, I thought back to, like, I didn't necessarily know a Black doctor, but it's like I knew that it was possible, but I had to imagine that. So now kids don't have to imagine that they can be superheroes because they can actually see it. And I think we're starting to see more and more in media these moments where we're being put in these places of power and these places of powerful storytelling, so it doesn't feel like a dream, it feels more like a reality. So I was overjoyed. It's like she deserves it. She did the course. So it was amazing to see that.
Janelle, I'm so glad that you brought that up about Black Panther, and I want to dig into that a little bit with you, Javicia. We talked about this a little bit on Unbothered's Go Off Sis podcast, but I'd love to just get a sense from you to think about, as we now see Black people in these superhero positions and in these roles and in these fantasy figures. I'd love to just talk about the weight of that representation, right? Coming off of the success of films like Black Panther, what does that mean for you to be a Black woman superhero? And I think, coming off of in 2020, of course, the passing of Chadwick Boseman that hit our community so hard, what does that representation mean for you in 2021?
I think Chadwick, he really opened up a door for us as artists, especially artists in the superhero world, in the superhero genre. I'm, something I live by is that I believe that God blesses us with our passions to find our purposes. And Chadwick's purpose was fulfilled through his art. And it was silently, and he was using his art as activism. And it allowed roles like Batwoman to be filled by a Black artist, and knowing that there is an audience for that. I think Black Panther showed that there was an audience for Black superheroes. So I really just pray that a part of my purpose is to use my passion to also leave the stage for someone else to tell their story as a Black superhero or as a Black artist in general.
Mm. And, I love what you just said about, there's an audience for this, right? There's an audience for these stories, for these conversations, and for these moments. And Briana, I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because I think, with Spike Spin, one of the things that you've been able to do is really connect Black men and women who maybe have not seen themselves in the wellness space and have not been heard and represented in that space, which we don't traditionally see Black faces. Can you tell us a little bit more about Spike Spin, about how you've encouraged wellness and representation and visibility for women of color and our community?
Absolutely. I think, much like Javicia said, I think that our passion and our purpose are typically very aligned. And I don't think that my purpose by any means is really to get people to work out. I think my purpose is much more aligned with getting people to see themselves, see the beauty in themselves, and experience themselves fully, which it just so happens that they can do that through wellness and through fitness and really seeing themselves achieve something difficult. And so with Spiked, I really wanted to take a space in an industry that for so long has shown people in a very specific way, very thin, very petite white women typically drinking a green juice, and just flip that on its head and let people know that that's not really the definition of healthy. That's not the definition of wellness. And even more specifically, wellness is not something that should become this social badge of honor, kind of like a handbag. It's not something that should only be accessible to people of a certain status. It's not a status symbol. It's something that we all need. It's kind of like the great equalizer. And so with Spiked Spin, I really wanted to be forward. I didn't want it to be a hidden message. I wanted it to be very clear as to what the mission was, which is to let people know that you belong here. This space is for you. The price point is much more affordable than some of the other options, and the location is much more centralized than some of the other options. I don't want you to have to leave your neighborhood to find a premium experience. I don't want you to have to, budget some crazy number, take away from your children's eating. It shouldn't have to come to those kinds of decisions. And so really with Spiked, the passion, which is just kind of like getting people excited and working out and using our bodies and experiencing ourselves fully from head to toe, really aligned with my purpose, which is just to like make these people feel seen, make Black women and Black men know that this space was created with you first. Obviously, we're welcome to everyone, just like everywhere else is, but you were at the top of my mind when I created this business. And that's just so important to me. It's something that so many times people have asked me, like, should you lead with that? Should we change the language? And I'm like, listen, the language is what it is. This is for us. And if I'm comfortable walking in that, then everyone else should feel comfortable walking into these doors. So that's it.
Ooh, that was a word. that is so true. I think, standing in your purpose, right, and being very clear, like this is for us, and that
Mm-hmm.
is exactly who it is for. Full stop. End of sentence. And I
Mhm.
think, Janelle, I'd love to just hear a little bit more from you as a beauty editor. Over the past few years, we've seen how the beauty industry has also expanded and become more shade inclusive and become more aware and cognizant of the different forms of beauty and the different ways that we express ourselves. So, can you tell us a little bit about your experience in that industry and seeing that shift?
Yeah, for sure. The great part about my career is that I started it off at Essence Magazine, and I think that was very pivotal for me because I was surrounded by Black women. So for a few, I guess like a year or two, I didn't really have to think about my race. I didn't have to think about my hair. I could just focus on like being myself and telling these stories. I think the challenge is when I left that. And I think since we all went to HBCUs, we kind of know that. It's like you're surrounded by this love and this family and this understanding, and once you leave that, it's very hard to navigate. So it's like the jobs afterwards, it was weird to me. Like I was like, I felt like I constantly had to explain myself or represent this whole facet of people that I knew were so wide and diverse.
Mm.
So the biggest changes that I'm seeing is apart from the shade inclusivity, it's always a weird experience for me when I'm being presented with brands and they have consumers of color in mind, but there's no one behind the scenes that can speak to that. So then they're kind of telling you about your culture and it's disheartening. You're just kind of like, well, you want my money, but you don't want anyone on board who looks like me. You're not really getting real experiences. You're just kind of looking at stats and numbers and figures. So that was part of the reason I wanted to kind of go more into consulting and branding, because if you are going to speak to these consumers, similar to what Briana was saying, like it needs to be from us for us. That needs to lead for it. And if it's not coming from that, you can instantly tell. Like you can sniff out like this doesn't feel right. So the beauty industry definitely has a ways to go. It's making strides, but I think it's also getting people really behind the scenes. So whether that's in product development or marketing or PR, even founders, like just really getting their story to be told in a real way.
And Ashley, I just picking up on that, I think one of the things that we've seen in the entertainment industry, and I'd love to get your thoughts on as an actress as well, is representation not only in front of the camera but behind it. And I just love for you to talk about your own experiences with that and seeing the ways that we've shifted that storytelling from top to bottom, right? And what does that look like for you? And do we have more to go, or does it feel performative?
I definitely have a way to go. It's improved significantly. I mean, really, what it comes down to is it comes down to the creators of whatever show or film making a choice. You know, Similar to with your spin studio, it's like you made a choice to say, "This is I created this for my people first. All are welcome, but this is who I had in mind." And it has to be the same with productions. Me on Dear White People just chosen to work with Black female directors. The only directors I'm working with this season is Justin and two other Black women directors. But that was a choice. And he had to go to our studio and our network and say, "This is my choice. I'm not changing my choice." It's literally just what she said. "I'm not changing my choice. I believe in it. I hope you can believe in it too. These are the reasons why I know that this is important." And sticking with that. And so I know that I always feel very fulfilled when I'm in situations like that. But I also know that most of the time I'm not afforded that luxury. And so when I don't have that opportunity, it is kind of the onus is more on me to make sure that whoever I'm working with understands the nuances of me being a Black woman. Because the truth is, no matter what character I play, I'm always a Black woman first. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if the breakdown says racially ambiguous or could be any race. When I step into the role, it is a role for a Black woman. And, and I know Javicia feels this way too, but, my career, I feel like I like to love letter to Black women. My entire dedicated to women who look like me. That is a responsibility that I take on proudly because so many before us did the same thing. And that's how Javicia and I got to be here playing the roles that we get to play on television. Javicia making history. Like there's no coincidence. She couldn't have done that had Diane Carroll not done what she did. So and obviously many, many other amazing actors and actresses. But we have a way to go. but I think that it's definitely improving.
And I love that you're shouting out the work, right? Because that is one of the things I think when we think about being the first Black blank or the first anything, that you guys touched on this a little bit earlier, that it feels like a meteoric rise, but honey, it is work. And it takes a
Yeah.
lot, and you hear a lot of no's, a lot of no's. And so, Javicia, I'd love to just talk with you a little bit about how you've overcome those challenges, those no's, that feeling of imposter syndrome, or feeling like being told that you need to be ethnically ambiguous when you are Black. How have you been dealing with that, and how do you overcome those challenges?
I think a lot has to do with my faith, to be honest with you. I feel like I am where I'm supposed to be. And it took a lot for me to have to be able to trust that. It took a lot for me able to trust for me to be able to trust my journey, for me to be able to trust that God has me, you know? If I would have gotten those roles and they would have said yes, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So to every no, for every closed door, it's really the beginning of a beautiful opening that you have to just have faith that it's there. And that was my entire journey in LA. My entire journey was believing that there was a bigger picture. My mom is my biggest supporter, but even she at one point said, when are you going to come home and get a real job? You know, it's just, I had to have faith and I had to know that there's a bigger picture. And I'm so happy I held on. And if there's any advice I'd give any aspiring anything, not just actor, you know, business owner, um, anything you want to do, you can't stop. You can't listen to the naysayers. You can't listen to the no's, because a lot of times that should be what fuels your tank. That should be what fuels you to go harder. That should be what fuels you to want to want to build on your craft and your talent, are the no's. Because at a certain point, you can't tell me no, because at a certain point, I know I have everything inside of me and I'm equipped with everything that I need to get this job done. So if you're saying no, then it's time for me to create my own opportunity. And that was another thing, understanding the value of our own opportunities. Like with Ashley, with Dear White People, they're such a family. They've moved from a movie to an amazing television show or Netflix show, streaming show, to like, that's pop culture. Dear White People is a part of pop culture. And that was holding on and believing in not just yourself, but believing in your peers and the people you've connected with. This entire panel, these are our peers. We supported each other. I remember Bree coming to LA and I'm like, let's make this happen. Let's combine my nonprofit with your business, and like, let's make an event that was epic and fun. And same with Janell. When I was in New York, Janell made it a way to include me in a lot of her projects. So it's just about not only believing in yourself, but understanding you don't need their yes, because we are equipped with everything we need to create our own yeses.
Ooh, you don't need
Yes.
their yes. I
No.
ooh, let's take a minute with
Mm-hmm.
that one, because that is
That was good.
really, yeah. I think it's really important to think about it like that, right? That again, this is not for you, this is for us. And you can join, but first and foremost, that is for us. And Briana, I'd love to just expand a little bit on this idea, because I think in 2021 we're also just shifting the ways that we think about work and our lives. And I'd love to just ask, for Black women entrepreneurs who are trying new things and trying to think about what their life looks like in 2021, do you have any advice for them in terms of when they hear no, or feeling like maybe they don't have the resources or the business savvy to start something, when they have that passion?
Yeah, I think coming out of 2020, everyone probably has this new idea of how to pivot. I mean, for myself, my business was greatly impacted from COVID and everything that's happening in the world today. I also had a child. I quit my full-time job, so I can 100% relate to any person who's trying to figure out, what does this life look like for me? I know that I have this passion. I know that it aligns with this purpose, but kind of what do I do with it? And I think for me, much like Javicia, it has a lot to do with faith, and it has a lot to do with faith not only in a higher being, for me it being God, but also faith in myself and the decisions that I've made to this point, and knowing the why and the bigger picture. So my advice to any entrepreneur or any person that's just trying to figure this out, it's something that I'm in the midst of. I'm not speaking to you from the other side. I'm speaking to you going through it. It's a lot of digging deeper, digging into those spaces and places in yourself that you don't want to deal with, that you're like, I do know I have this knowledge. I do know that I have this information, but what can I do with it? What is the value that I have and can bring it to the world in a smart way, in a way that's going to be impactful? Not just another thing. I feel like because of everything that happened in 2020 and the rush of wanting to not miss it, a lot of things are just kind of like being put out there. Everyone now cares about Black people. Everyone cares about minorities, and everyone wants, there's just all these buzzwords of like, at home this, and it's like, take a second and don't feel that you're missing out, like that second of really delving into what it is that needs to be done is probably the most important of the work, and from that, listen and then put it into action. So the more quiet that I've gotten, because I was on go, I used to be a very much like, I need this deal, I need to be on this person's couch, I need this person to be interviewing me, I need, if not, spiked doesn't matter, and only people in this 5 mile radius will care. And it's like, sometimes owning the 5 mile radius is what is needed for that season. And so my advice is really just embrace the season and own the season, like whatever your faith is, whatever it is that fills you up, stay in that place and don't be afraid to explore it fully. So there are days of tears, there are days of great inspiration, there are days of just watching Housewives, like I allow myself to experience everything very fully so that I can bring my full self forward. So that's my advice. It's like, there's no get rich quick magic pill to take for this life. There's just the journey, and there's just not giving up on what it is. It's being fluid in how you get there, but just being firm in where you're going. So that's my advice.
Yes, speak on it. Okay, we need a sermon today. And I think I want to like dig into that a little bit with you, Javicia, and just talk a little bit about being firm in your purpose, despite anything else swirling around you. And I think I want to talk about that a little bit, because when the announcement, as we mentioned, of your casting was made public, there was such an outpouring of support from DC fans, from obviously the ladies here, your like HBCU tribe, but there was also, considerable pushback. And whether or not we give credence to that pushback is one thing, but it was there. So I would love to know just how did you handle that, and what does that look like when it comes to, again, as Briana said, just like accepting the spectrum of emotions and riding with them.
So to be completely transparent, when when everything first started and we started filming, it was like a fast moving vehicle. And I really didn't have the time to react to a lot of stuff because I didn't know how to be a superhero. I remember the first time I put the suit on, I was just like, how do I hold my hands? Like, I didn't understand the concept of any of it. So while Ryan Wilder is learning to be Batwoman, Javicia is learning to be a superhero. And it was really scary. And I didn't know, was I doing it right, And I could try to emulate other people, but it wasn't natural for me. So I knew I had to find this on my own. And so there were times where, in between scenes, if there was a long period of time, I'd get on Instagram. And I remember one day I got on Instagram and I read comments that were just like, they just like were breaking me. And I'm a pretty tough cookie. I've been through a lot. Like my friends from college can tell you, like, I've been there, but just to see people say such nasty things, and they haven't even seen the show yet. This is how I knew it was rooted in something that it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, this had nothing to do with the dislike of a character. You've never even seen the character. This was all about the idea that this character should be played by a white woman. And what do you mean she's Black? Batwoman can't be Black. And just like the comments, they just got nastier and nastier. And I would block people, but they would find a way to get to me. And so I had read some really disgusting comments, and I went back on set to shoot my last take of the day. And I'm in the Batmobile, and I'm driving, and I find myself saying in my head, "Do it for your people, VC. Do it for the people." And I was just like, nothing was coming out of me, because you can't. That's the worst motivation you could ever give yourself as an artist in a scene. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm servicing Ryan. I'm not servicing every Black person in this moment. I am servicing Ryan and everything that comes with Ryan. Ryan represents a lot of people, but my job is to service Ryan. And I kept feeling the block, and I couldn't understand. And I got to my trailer, and I just started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. Like, I was just crying. And I was just like, it's not fair that something that's so beautiful in my life that's happening has to have like this shadow on it. You know what I mean? Like, this is life changing for me, and it's so important to so many people. And there are these people in this world that want to take that away from us. But then I just remembered, anytime it was several things, but one thing that really reminded me and regrounded me was when it first happened, when I first was cast. And there was this little girl that had told her dad, "Oh my God, Dad, Batwoman looks like me." And it just reminded me, like, this has nothing to do with me. And God has brought me so far that I can't let these devils take his glory, take the work he's done. He's done too much using me. And this is what I prayed for. This is genuinely what I prayed for. And he's given it to me. And now it's my job to do what my purpose is. And I won't allow anyone to take that from me. I won't allow anyone to take it from me. And I won't allow anyone to take it from the people that I represent. And that was a journey. And it was at a time where I was doing this book called The Artist's Way that was telling me to turn everything off anyway. So I turned off Instagram, I turned off the TV, I turned off everything for a few weeks, and I kind of just regrounded myself. And I reminded myself of my purpose and of my artistry. And I got back into the world, and I felt protected, I felt supported, and I felt safe because I took that time for myself. I was running really thin. I didn't have a lot left in my tank because I was giving everything. And then to allow myself to go and be attacked, I allowed that because I opened myself to it. To allow myself to be attacked that way, I had to really take the time and heal. And I had to take the time to heal because it was important that I healed. That way I could really give Ryan the service that she deserved. But it's definitely a journey. And I feel very empowered by my people. And I'm so happy I made that post, just letting everybody know what I was going through. I had a lot of people to reach out to me that said, "Don't post that, you're giving them their power." And I said, but this is really what I'm going through. And I hate that as Black people, especially Black women, we suffer in silence. And I don't think it's fair. And I think the moment that I was able to put it out there were so many people that felt what I felt, that were going through what I was going through in their own way. And their words of encouragement is another factor in what helped me to get through it and understand the bigger picture.
Ooh. Yes, there's a lot there, and thank you for being vulnerable with us in this moment, because I think, to your point, a lot of times Black women don't get that luxury at all, and to be reminded and to remember that we should and we deserve it is really, it's crucial, especially now. We are the community givers, we are the caretakers, we are the creators, and being able to take time for ourselves and to reassess is hugely important. Again, especially in this time when there's so much coming at us. And Janell, I'd love to just talk to you a little bit about that. When it feels exhausting, and when, in Javicia sort of explaining that, I feel like all of us were nodding our heads, like, we know being that tired, right? We know being that exhausted, and we know what being challenged like that feels like. How do you sort of turn off when it gets to be too much, and how do you make sure that you're filling up your cup?
That's hard because I think as Black women in particular, we feel this responsibility, which sometimes turns into be a burden of fixing things, right? So it's like we see these things in front of us and we feel like, I want to help. I know how to do this. I need to jump in. I don't want this person to suffer. But then in turn, you end up suffering and hurting and depleting yourself. It's hard to turn off. And I think, especially in this moment, like, especially with everything happening with Black Lives Matter, there was a lot of pressure and force put on entrepreneurs, creators, businesses, what, like you name it, of color to fix it, right? It's like there's this problem. And instead of people addressing all the things that happen, it's like, no, it's your job to fix it. And you should be happy for these opportunities. So I think the biggest thing to kind of replenish myself was saying no. I said a no to a lot of products that maybe in retrospective, I probably could have been further. It may have like hurt my career or whatnot, but it's just like I didn't have it in me. And it's like if it's not something that feels connected and rooted to myself, it doesn't make sense. So I kind of made the decision like moving forward, I want to work with more businesses of color. I want to work with more entrepreneurs of color. I want to support the people who've supported me, and trying to turn off when I can, even though that's hard, but recognizing, similar to what Briana said, is like you're not always missing something. We live in a moment where it feels like if you say no to something, you're denying your path, or kind of what Javicia was saying, like if you're not getting these opportunities, it derails you. It doesn't. So really taking that moment to step back and think about what's the longevity of this? Will I be happy doing this? Will I be resentful doing this? And I think with self-care in particular, we think of it in these very, like, I'm not sure of the word, but we think of it so sterile in the sense of it's a bubble bath or it's a manicure, which it can be those things, but sometimes it's just quiet time, it's meditating, it's praying, it's journaling, it's really having those moments of solitude with yourself. I think that's also a nice way to kind of check in with yourself when you're feeling depleted and or low.
And Ashley, I want to also just kick it to you because I think one of the things that we think about when you're right, Janell, like self-care feels so like binary, right? Like this is self-care, this isn't. But I think when it comes to finding like moments of joy, what does that look like for you, Ashley? I know you just got engaged. You found pockets of joy. Oh, actually, I've done my research. Do not worry. I know. I know. But I just want to talk about, finding joy, right? What does that look like for you, Ashley?
It changes with the seasons. I know for a while when I first moved to LA, I still do this, but hiking was my source of joy. It was my quiet time. It was it was my time to talk with God. And it still is these things, right? I just did it a lot more than I do now. But for me now, like, self-care and finding joy for me is in the quiet moments. It's similar to what Janell said. It's when I can steal away and take a bath. It's when I can really take the time to read. It's when I can have a nice gathering with my friends that's COVID safe. It's when I can just cuddle with my dog. It's when I can go, talk wedding stuff with my fiance. It's those little moments. I think the older I get, the more I think the ultimate type of self-care is being able to read and know your body enough to know what you need in that moment. Similar to what Janell says, I think sometimes people think it has to be a bath all the time. But like I said, it was hiking for me years ago. Now it's little small things, it's allowing yourself to scan your body and see what you need at that moment. And I'm just so grateful with age. I feel like I've gotten a lot better at that. And then also, honestly, the thing that I find the most joy in is just getting a new day to have another opportunity to do this all over again. Like, I'm just so grateful that I get to have experiences and live a life that's full and be able to talk with other like-minded women in situations like this and support a friend who is making history as, the first Black Batwoman. I mean, these are things that give me so much joy and that I'm just so able to be able to take part in.
I love that. And I think one of the things that you mentioned was having that time with your friends. And I think one of the things that I love and, in this new world is the group chats are popping. Okay. And
Group
that
chats
is
are
where, like,
thriving. They're thriving.
you know, that's where I feel like a lot of us find our joy. So I just wanted to ask if you guys have a group chat, like, what does that look like? A Hampton HBCU one or a homecoming one? And what role do you guys all play? Like, who's the hype woman, the one who uses the emojis, the one who's always late? That's me.
Ashley's the
Javicia, I'll start with
nickname
you.
person. Ashley's the
Yeah,
nickname
I'm a
person. Ashley
nicknamer.
has a nickname for everybody.
What's yours
I
for
Hells
do.
Javicia, if you
bells.
would
I
tell
love
us?
nicknames. What'd you say, Javicia?
Um, I said Hells bells and everybody.
Oh
You have a
yeah,
nickname
Hells
for all.
Bells, yeah. I
Um,
call you
I would
Vicia. I don't
say,
call you Javicia. I don't call you VC. I call you Vicia. I
yeah.
love it. How to
Um,
switch it up.
I I would say for my group chats, usually honestly, I react more than I am the person that brings the information to the chat. So I'm usually the one laughing. Um, and when I do make a joke, I'm just praying that it lands. That's about as good as you're gonna get from me.
And Brianna, I feel like you might be the one who like drops the word in, every like so often. Am I right? Or are you like in there all the time?
Yeah, I'm definitely late to the group chat most of the time, and I respond though in real time, and everyone gets upset. Like, girl, we are 5 conversations later, and I'm like, well, this is still my opinion on whatever, whatever the last thing I read is. But, but I'm also like Javicia. I just love to laugh. I feel like memes are at an all-time high right now, and they bring me. Speaking of things that bring me joy, like I love that as a culture, we can find humor and joy in everything. I think it speaks to our resilience. So
Mhm.
many times people are like, we make everything a joke. And I'm like, you have to laugh to stop from crying sometimes. And
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
the laughter has been nonstop. There's just so many topics that are like, you
Black
can't make this
Twitter.
up.
Black Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm like, you
Unmatched.
literally cannot
Unmatched.
make this. It's unmatched. And I don't have the humor to come up with it, but I'm like, this is exactly what I felt. So I always feel seen from the memes. I'm like, this is my thoughts in a GIF. So I'm definitely that person. And I'm always bothering Janelle also, just like, I just like to bother my friends. I'll just send them any, like, if I saw Javicia when she was mentioning, like, the trolls, I sent her a message like, I'm very available right now to talk to anyone that you
Send
need
them
me to
my
get in your
way.
comment section. I don't like, I'm that friend that's just gonna like add a little bit more smoke to the flame. So
Yes. Okay. Okay, Brianna, you're the muscle. Got it. All right. And Janelle, which one are you?
I'm the voice memo, and everyone gets so mad because I'm just like, I write so
Oh,
much. I'm just like, I don't have time to type out all my thoughts and feelings. So you're going to wake up to a minute-long voice memo with all my thoughts and feelings. People are going to be like, oh, I can't replay it. What did you say? Send it again. But I like a voice memo and an article link. So one of my group chats, we have a rule like you can't just drop in information. So, when they're like, so-and-so said this, it's like, according to who? So then we're like, that's not a real source, girl. And then it gets discussed. So we like links. I
Hmm.
like voice memos. It's just easier. And then it makes sure that I respond too.
See, that's the editor in you. I love that. You're like, cite your
yeah.
sources.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
I
It's
love
smart
that.
too. And so just in thinking about the stories and themes that we've talked about today, and some of the things that we know are happening in the group chats and on Black Twitter, now that we see reflected in media, right? And I think those stories are the ones that we're so excited to be telling with a show like Batwoman, right? To be able to bring up those themes of justice, of joy, of resistance, of uplifting when we need it. Javicia, can you talk about some of the themes that we'll see from the season of Batwoman that are that resonate with today's audience and with us?
I think definitely the idea of defunding the police becomes a theme. Definitely the idea of not feeling like our community not feeling protected and defended by our government, by our police. Um, the idea of queerness being more accepted is another theme that we address. Um, but you know, it's a superhero show, so we play in those themes, but we try to make sure that we're still constantly having something fun to play with as well. And I think that we do a great job kind of having one foot in each of those worlds.
And it's so great because I think the energy of this past year has also driven us to support those stories, right? And to be telling them on this bigger, broader stage. And I think one of the other things, just to close out, that I'm so excited about and so excited to see with all of you as HBCU alums is the outpouring of support for HBCUs and to continue the education of Black men and women in spaces where they feel safe and where they feel heard and where they are seen. And so just thinking of that same energy and to close this out, what's one thing that you would like to see more support of or more of in 2021? Ashley, I'll start with you.
I would like to see just more open-mindedness. And I think what prompted me to say that, watching Javicia cry and experiencing, through her what that feels like, simply because people aren't open-minded enough. That's the thing. Like, to us, to Black folks, we've always been superheroes. When Javicia got the role, we weren't shocked, we weren't surprised. We were like, duh, I don't know why it's 2020 and this is just now happening. So for me, I would like for everybody to keep that same energy. Like, that's what I want. I'm tired of people being surprised at the strides and the accomplishments that people of color, specifically Black people, make. That's what I would really appreciate, because I think, Javicia, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I think that the tears came from the frustration of, why is this so jarring for you all? I'm living my dream, a dream that I deserve to fully live. Why is it that there's any room for any naysayers with this? And I just would like less of that. I'm going to change overnight, but I'm always pushing for it. And I think that the way that I contribute to that personally is just to continue to be unapologetically the Black female artist that I am. There's no questions, there's no confusions about who I am and who I'm representing. And I think the more that we face the world and our artistry in that way, then the more people will have no choice but to be more open-minded.
Mm-hmm. Janell, what are you demanding more of in 2021?
Ooh, this was a hard one because I thought about this, but I think pay equity across the board. So I think for us, especially as creatives of color, it's very hard to navigate this because obviously, depending on like how you grew up with your parents, this is a weird world. Them being like, this is a job, this is something you can do. So we don't have these resources to help us navigate like these pay conversations. So whether it's like you're an influencer, are your rates on board with your quote unquote white peers? If you are a business owner, are you charging the right prices that make sense for your business? So what I really want to see and challenge like our allies to do is have more transparency. So it's like, if I reach out to a marketing agency and I'm like, hey, I want to work with you, instead of them saying, what are your rates? I'm like, this is a standard rate and this is what we can afford to pay you. Because I think it just lessens the conversation of me underserving myself or doubting myself or not having the ability to know what to charge. And I think in order for us to quote unquote catch up, that's the only way. It's like I constantly think about finances, and even with the stimulus check and just thinking about like, who is this helping depending on like what your social or financial status is. And it's just like, if we had more financial abundance and we were thinking about this in a different way, I think it would really push us forward. So I just really want to see more people giving people who look like us more money, not pushing back when we ask for the rates that we do, giving transparency as to what we should ask for, and really pushing and driving that forward.
Mm. Janelle said, I'm where the money resides this year. Okay.
Period.
Okay.
Basically. Yeah.
Yep.
Ditto.
I'm for it.
Ditto.
Right. All right, Briana, how about you? What do you want to see more of, and what are you demanding more of in 2021?
I'm demanding more action. I think there are a lot of words, there are a lot of performative things done over the past year, and just in general, especially when it comes to Black women, Black culture. People love to align with it when it's cute and make a meme, like we said, and they can create, campaigns around us. But and my background is advertising, pre-entrepreneurship, and so I have been in rooms where I know a lot of things are just performative. They sound good in the moment. They're going to kind of tick the box and they're going to settle people's spirits for the moment. But I would love to see action. So, more open mindedness to Ashley's point, more money to Janelle's point, more people in these rooms instead of it just being like, we hear you, we see you. Okay, I want to see us on the boards. I want to see us in roles that are making decisions. I want to see us, really doing the things, and I want to see brands really putting us in those places, in those spaces. I need to see more Black Batwomen. I am so inspired by what Javicia is doing because it's action. It's not just them putting her in a supporting role, which there's no issue, but it's like she is Batwoman. Like Javicia is Batwoman. Like that for me is incredible. My friend, I'm looking at her crying and I'm like getting emotional because that's action. And I think 2021, that's what we need to demand. No more just black boxes, no more just a hashtag. Like, what is your company doing? And how can we see it reflected 5-10 years from now? I don't miss me with just like, we love Black people. That was last year. 21, show me. I need to see it. I need to see it.
I would like to see it. I would like to see it. And I love that. So, Javicia, we'll end with you, our resident action star. What are you demanding more of in 2021?
I'm demanding more of, changing the definition of normalcy and what we think is normal, what we define as normal. I think that, representation, it's so important, especially in underrepresented communities. Like we've done as Black people, we've shown that the Black dollar is powerful. And I think that because of that, we really should be more represented and here's another thing, like when you're representing us, represent us in all shapes, sizes, and colors and shades. I'm ready to see some more chocolate leads, chocolate female leads. I'm ready to see more love stories with dark-skinned Black women. We don't get that enough. Like I look at Issa Rae in the photograph and I'm just like, that should be way more common, and it's not to throw shade towards any other complexion in our beautiful array of complexions that we have as Black women. I just feel like I want to see more of it because it empowers so many individuals that feel powerless in a world where they don't see themselves. And they don't see themselves as beautiful because this country specifically has told us that we weren't. Have told us that our complexion doesn't represent beauty, our hair doesn't represent beauty, which is funny because they're out there trying to get our hair and trying to get our complexion and trying to get our butts, trying to get our sizes and our shapes. You take it from us, but then you tell us it's not beautiful. And I just want to see representation at its finest and at its highest. And I'm tired of waiting for someone to give it to us. I think that what's really going to allow it to happen is to continue to bring it to the forefront on our own. You have your Issa Raes, you have your Ava DuVernays, you have your women that are really creating the content to show us in all of our beauty. And I think that that's really important. I think at the end of the day, life imitates art. So to know that it's possible is to see it. So to see it is to believe it, and we need to start seeing more of it.
Okay, this is a great way. I'm going into 2021. Okay, I'm motivated. How about that? I want to thank you all so much for claiming your power, for sharing your passion, and for lending your presence to this moment, to this conversation, and to this community. It means a lot, and I want you guys to know that as long as you guys show up, we all will too. So keep showing up for all of us, and we're going to do the same for you. So thank you so much for joining us again, for being so open and vulnerable and willing to have this conversation that we need to be having. And do not forget, CW's Batwoman airs on Sundays, 8/7 Central. Don't forget to tune in. See Javicia in action. Thank you, ladies.
Yay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See ya.
Bye.